Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. Good morning.
Yes, I could hear you, Ina.
Okay, great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yes. Uh, Welcome, everyone. This is our third and fourth roundtable discussions that we are presenting for Sovereign Bodies Institute. I want to welcome all of you today. We are going to have a great conversation in regards to parent and two-spirit and Native LGBTQ youth experiences. So we are going to open up first with a prayer for my Ina Ethelene.
Good morning, everybody, or maybe it's afternoon. Thank you, Chingshi. Shina Ikik Jumi Imachapi. My Lakota spirit name is Takesiroboman, and I'm Ethleen Ironcloud, two dogs on the tribal rolls. I'm Oglala Lakota and also have Crow ancestry. I'm very happy to be here with you all and very honored to provide the blessing. Tunkashila le ampetu wopila tranka geni chapina tunkashila le omniche unhapikte ki oya kapikte hechel oyate ki iwashte pikte iota tchechapi ki iwashte pikte tunkashila wopila tranka mitakuye oyasi. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Ina. Anita?
Good morning. Hello. Okay, there's my video. Hi, everyone. Welcome to everybody who's tuning in on the live stream. Good morning. We're really thankful to have you join us today. My name is Anita Lucchese. I'm Executive Director of Sovereign Bodies Institute, and it's my great pleasure to get to open up the webinar today. I want to acknowledge that today is Juneteenth, which for anybody who is unfamiliar with the holiday, it's a day that we set aside to celebrate the time when our Black relatives here in the States were liberated and were no longer being enslaved. So today's a special day for our Black relatives and for us standing in solidarity with them. And before we get started with the webinar today, I want to remind folks that we did a great webinar just recently with our Black and Indigenous sisters who shared how we as Indigenous communities, especially those of us in the MMIP movement, can best support Black Lives Matter during this time. So one way to honor Juneteenth is to tune in and listen and learn from them. And with that, I am just going to say thanks again to all of our panelists. We have some amazing speakers today who have some powerful and beautiful stories to share. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to Lenny for putting this together.
Thank you, Anita. My name is Sunny Hayes, and I'm from the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate of the northeast corner of South Dakota. I am Sovereign Body Institute's Missing and Murdered Two-Spirit Project Assistant. I'm really excited today in regards to our parents and youth who are going to be a great part of our discussion today. So what I am going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves, please.
Hi, I'm Carrie Wabanascom. Carrie Wabanascom Nyungyats Waginyanti Wikitalora Onyote Agani. Carrie Wabanascom. I am Oneida from the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. I'm also Menominee, Potawatomi, and Stockbridge. All ancestry is from Wisconsin, or originally the land of the Menominee. I go by she, her, hers. I am a proud mother and auntie to several nephews, but I'm also a proud mother, very, very proud mother of a transgender son and a 9-year-old daughter. Oh yeah, and I'm a wife too. I can't forget about my husband. That's me in a nutshell.
Carrie, is your camera coming on? There you are.
Oh no, yep.
Thank you, thank you. Ryan?
Hi, my name is Dehaduna Helahau, Ryan Arnold. I'm Oneida Menominee from Oneida, Wisconsin. I now live in St. Paul, Minneapolis, plan to stay. I plan to live here because I will attend Minneapolis College of Art and Design, MCAD, this fall. I want to be a comic artist to show Natives are still here and alive, and to also tell stories about Native LGBTQ plus and Two-Spirit. My pronouns are he, him, his.
Thank you. Linda?
Good afternoon. My name is Linda Thompson, and I am from Boysport with descendancy from both Leech Lake and Mille Lacs in Minnesota. I am the mother to 6 children, and 2 of my sons identify as gay. I'm also a mother to 4 other women and an auntie to many, many people. Grandma too. I'm a new grandma. I have a 1-week-old granddaughter. So I identify as she, her, and hers.
Thank you. Go ahead, Charlie.
Okay. Hi, my name's Gerard Charlie Thompson. I am from the Spirit Lake Tribe of Dakota in North Dakota and from Boysport as well, of course. I do identify as gay. Right now, I am in Prior Lake, Minnesota. I work at Mystic Lake right now, hoping to go back into school and hopefully pursue a career in medicine at some point. And I would really like to utilize those skills to help our people, if at all possible. And apologize for the noise. I'm really happy to be here today and talk about my experiences and such with everybody. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Charlie. Crystal?
Hamadakyopi. Chante, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Hamadakyopi. Chante washte na pe chiyus apire. My relatives, I greet all of you with a good heart and a handshake. My name is Crystal Owen. I am a member of the Sisseton, Wahpeton, Dakota Oyate, and I am on the Lake Traverse Reservation located here in Northeast South Dakota. I am a mother, a grandmother. I have a son who is gay, and I have a granddaughter who is gender fluid. And I'm happy to be here. I want to thank Sovereign Bodies Institute for inviting me to be part of this conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your introductions. So one of the things that I want to stress before we get started to everyone who is participating in this roundtable discussion is that I want to remind everyone to be respectful, to be compassionate, and also remember that this is a safe space for our panelists to have a very enriched conversation that I know that we don't have much in our tribal communities. So with that, let's get started. Again, also too, I forgot to mention that if any questions come in through chat, towards the end of our roundtable discussion, we will be asking the questions to the panelists for the audience. Thank you. So I'm going to start with the parents first today. And again, thank you so much for being here. I have so much respect for all of you. And I'm really, really happy that you have agreed to be a part of this. So one of the questions I want to ask the parents, can you tell us some of your experiences as a parent of a child who identifies as either Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ? What were some of your fears? Also, what were some of your struggles and challenges? Was your family and community accepting of your children? So we'll start out with Carrie first.
All right. So I just want to start out with saying I have a really brief story. I promise you the story is very brief. So when my son was about 2 years old, I always ask my kids, why are you so cute? Like, you know, our little baby talk, we're like, why are you so cute? Oh, you're so cute. And so my little 2-year-old son, Ryan, he told me, he goes, because the creator made me that way. He was 2 years old and he said that. And I was taught that, you know, our babies come from the creator's world. And so I knew that he had a very strong connection to our creator. And just by me hearing those words, it really meant a lot. And I took it seriously. And we also have this teaching that our children are gifts from the creator. And so I've tried really hard throughout my whole life as a mother and auntie to take care of the kids that are presented to me by the creator. And that means taking care of my nephews as well, because right now we take care of 3 nephews. And I try my hardest to keep them healthy, happy, and safe, and loved. So my son and I have had conversations throughout, and you know, he was raised with certain societal gender roles. And when he started asking me questions about LGBTQ, what does this mean? What does that mean? My response was to him in words that he shared with me when he was 2 years old, is the creator made them that way. And so he was like, oh, okay. And it was just that right there. And so when my son came out to me, it was after we moved here to Minnesota. He came out to me as transgender. And I knew right away that, you know, this was my son. And I knew all along, as many other parents probably can relate, is that we know, as a mother, we know our children. We carried them. They were sent to us as a gift from the creator. We know them. And so I knew something was special about my son. And so I knew that I had a huge responsibility to protect my son, one, from society. I had those fears. I also had other fears and challenges, you know, societal judgment, family judgment. But I kept in my mind that as long as I was taking care of my gift from the creator, that's all that mattered. And when I can do that and I can focus on that, then all of the outside judgment kind of disappears. That's my experience. I did have some fleeting fears of like, oh, am I going to become a grandma? And I know Lenny and I talked about this before, but you know, those were fleeting, because then at the same time, I was also learning about colonization. I was learning deeper about colonization because I came here to go to school. I came here to get a PhD. And it's really sad that it has to be at this level that we really can dig deep into that for many of us. I mean, some already are light years ahead of where I am, but I was also learning about the colonial family ethic, the patriarchy, those gender roles that have been imposed upon us as a people is colonization. And so at the same time as I was learning about that, I was just like, okay, I'm going to do anything I can to support my son, anything I can. And if it means losing people, fine. Because I always told my son that I carried you in my body. The creator sent you to me. And that's a huge honor. That's a huge responsibility. And so I'm going to put you before anybody and everybody. And if that means losing anybody, fine, so be it. So that's all I have to say on that. I'll concede and let somebody else go.
Thank you, Carrie. Those are some very powerful words, and it's such a great honor and a pleasure to have met you here in Minneapolis, and just our friendship growing and having great conversations when we're together. And I'm really disappointed with this COVID-19 because it keeps us from having coffee together. But thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Auntie Linda.
Do you hear Lenny call me auntie? No.
It's a habit.
Well, okay, the question was, what were some of my fears?
So can you tell us some of your experiences as a parent of a child who identifies as Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ? What was your fears? What were some of your struggles and challenges, and was your family and community accepting?
I would say that I lived in a rural North Dakota town where there was a lot of racism already, and classism and sexism, and it's rampant in rural America and in mainstream also, as you can see from the last couple of weeks. But I think that I was scared for his physical safety and for the emotional safety. The spiritual stuff, I knew that I had work to instill and help him to develop a sense of belonging and community. And I think when you talk to him, that he'll help you to understand what we have done along since he was a baby, and there is no question that, in my heart and my mind, I too identify with what Carrie said, that it doesn't matter to me about my family or about supposedly friends or people who are ignorant, or people, especially our own people who didn't take the time to learn about their culture and the history, because it was amongst the Dakota people that I first really learned, before I even was pregnant with Charlie, some of the teachings about the Winka and some of the gifts and the strengths that they brought to the people, and that every person and everything ever made by Creator has a place in the circle, and they bring their own gifts. The gifts come forward, and it's usually going to be about helping the people. I was more worried about what the effects of this world would be on him, and that he would have the strength and the courage to survive the things that would be said. We knew at home there would be acceptance. In the beginning, he wasn't sure, because it came accidental that I found out, or that I knew. And then I was more scared for his physical safety. I work with crime and advocacy, and I have for many years. And I also sat on like the child protection team, and also was a part of the multidisciplinary team. So we knew the amount of suicides, and then some of the things that had happened with young people and young adults that weren't getting the support or the validation of what had happened or what was going on in their life. And so I was scared about that too, that I didn't want anything to happen to him internally that I wasn't able to see, because I like Carrie, saw my son and the gifts that he had for many years. He was able to master the English language when he was really young, and then learned about dancing and culture, and he grew up on the reservation. But you can grow up on a reservation or in a urban tribal home or community, but not really know about who you are or about who your people are. And so there can be a lot of classism and abusive lateral violence that happens in our communities as a part of oppression and colonization, that we bought the lie. And so we can harm our own people. So with that, I was worried about that too. And I think when you really think about somebody, focused in and intent on causing pain or suffering or humiliation or degradation on your child, there is an amount of fear, but the rage and the sense to protect and empower is even more than the fear. So I think that we couldn't have this conversation years and years ago, because there's so much misinformation floating around. I've always, he had access to the internet, so he had developed a whole different way of thinking. Had access to information and to acceptance and an online presence and with people that could be supportive and help him to know where he might not have had that support system in the little town we lived in. So it was more fear, and then the sense of protecting, I think, is what it was. And then to empower. And now he's a young adult. So, I'm proud of the choices that he's making and that he's looking to further his education and help the people. So.
Thank you, Auntie Linda. Crystal, can we hear your thoughts?
My story starts, back in 1988, 80, 89. I'd been, and I want to say this because this is how I started out through this whole experience. So back in 1988, 89, I had been married for 12 years. And after I got divorced, and my kids were little then, I have 7 kids. My husband, after maybe almost a year after we had been divorced, my husband came out that he was gay, which was a shock, because we did have kids together. So we had to learn how to deal with all that. And my kids were little when we were divorced. So my youngest, my son who's gay now, he was probably, when I got divorced, he was probably about 2, 3 years old. So, as my other kids were going to school, in school, a lot of them started teasing my kids because their dad was gay. And they, just say some really horrible things to them. And this is out of one of our tribal schools. And my girls were traumatized. I think all my kids were. It's a hard thing to deal with, personally, that part of it. But I told my kids that, that is your dad. And I had to educate. That's your dad, no matter what. That's who he is. You have to love him anyway. Love him and accept him. He's always going to be your dad, no matter what. And so my kids grew up, thinking that. And the other night I was having a conversation with them because I haven't talked to them about this in a long time. And so we had to talk about it. And I said, what are your feelings? I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go speak, share in this conversation. And I want to know how you kids feel about it. So they gave me, their ideas and how they felt. And one of the things was, Mom, how did you feel, when that happened and you had to go through all that? And I, so I told him, I remember that kids were mean. And I remember one day my girl was at school and she got bullied because of her dad, calling, your dad's gay, and, saying all kinds of things, and it hurt her feelings. So she ran home and she cried to her older sister. Her older sister just went right over there and talked to the teacher, because at that time it was kind of like, well, and even today it's still a little, it's more in open, but it seems like it was more taboo then, and it's so we had to educate. I had to go to the school board and say, you need to educate your teachers, you need to educate the kids. This is life. Not everybody we don't all look alike. We're not all the same. We all have our differences. We are who we are. And we need to teach our young kids how to accept one another. We say kids are sacred, and, you've even heard that 2 spirits are sacred in our culture. But do we really treat them as if they're sacred? That's a whole different, do we even treat each other as if we're sacred, just being normal human beings? We have to get back to that. So, and then my son, I had 4 daughters at the time. And my husband and I were trying for one son. And I then thought, well, if I get a son, we're going to save our marriage. Things are going to be okay. But that's not how it worked out. I had a son, and my kids joke about it today. And they're like, gee, Mom, you're just waiting for this boy. And, and then now he's gay. And that's all right. he's still my son. And he's still your brother. I tell them. I had to tell them because they gave him a hard time. Even his own sisters were very mean to him. And I did not know all that was going on until the other night they told me. And he told me. He said, Mom, my biggest bullies sometimes were my own sisters. And my sisters and his sisters, in their defense, they said, well, we knew how we felt. We know how kids treated us because of Dad. We didn't want you to go through that. We wanted to toughen you up. You know, and a lot of times in our Indian homes, in our homes, we're like, yeah, let's toughen them up. Let's just tease the heck out of them and say, oh, geez, I was just kidding. And, you know, so we have that too goes against us as we try to accept and love one another for who we are and trying to, you know, be Dakota, Lakota, Nakota. So I had to go through that. And then my son, you know, he was always like, the teacher would say, he's just a mother hen. He likes to help and he takes care of everybody, you know. So his personality when he was young, that was already that's who he was. He's a caretaker. He loves to take care of people. And I think more importantly than anything that, you know, as he got older, he had a hard time in the community. Like, even if it's hard in your family, people are going to chastise you in your family and out in the community. Grandma, who does not understand it. My mother's 95 years old, or she'll be 95 in a few months. But even today, you know, she tries to understand, but she just doesn't. She comes from an old school, you know, where being gay was back. She was born in 1925. Back then, 25, 35, 45, they you had to hide who you were. Can you imagine living like you can't even be who you want to be? I watched a story on TV the other day. These two women, they were lovers. They loved each other since they were in high school and throughout college. Throughout their whole lives, they were together 60 some years. And they lived in secrecy until they were like 70, 80 years old. And finally, they felt like they could come out to their family, and their family just accepted them for who they were. They didn't really question, you know, oh, are they sleeping together? Are they lovers? Whatever. You know, so I think we have to pave that way. And I think that's what my most fear for my son has been, that I want him to have that acceptance within his own heart, within himself. And he says that too. He's like, Mom, even if my family doesn't accept who I am, I have to accept who I am. And if they can't accept it, that's their stuff. They can take it and they can do whatever they want with it. But for me, for today, this is me. I love myself. I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with my partner. And they're very loving, but they have to go through things that, like, if a straight couple, they go walking down the street hand in hand, stop and kiss each other, and nobody thinks anything. Well, you got two men walking hand in hand and they stop and kiss, and pretty soon everyone's like, ew, oh, look at that, you know. People still do that, you know, and we need to teach in our homes that love is love, you know, and we have to really be. I made a lot of mistakes when I was raising my kids, and everything was in a jumble. There was alcohol involved, and so we have to like really get for our kids nowadays, because I think about my granddaughter. You know, she passed away now 5 years ago. She was gender fluid. I didn't know what that meant, and she had to educate me. And I would ask questions. I would say things that she'd say, Grandma, you don't say that. You can't ask that. You know. And I said, well, teach me, because I don't know. I don't know how to ask these questions. Like, some days she'd wake up and she'd identify as a male, and I'd be like, you know, we'd go shopping, and, you know, we like to go garage selling, thrift store shopping. And sometimes she'd buy dresses, and other days she'd buy, you know, want to buy men's shirts and, you know, just manly looking clothes. And so when I'd see her on certain days, you know, when I'd have to watch how she's dressed, because then you know, she even had a male name that she identified herself as Liam. So, those things. And for me, that was even new to me, because I didn't know what gender fluid was. I didn't know what that meant. So she taught me that. But, you know, for her, in this day and age, she's been gone 5 years. She committed suicide. I think, you know, part of that, she walked with me about 6 years ago. We did a community event, and we talked about bullying. And she got in front of probably 200 kids. She took that microphone and she talked about bullying. She talked about being different. She talked about accepting each other as young people, for accept each other for who we are. You know, it's not easy for, it was not in this day and age, 21st century, it should be easy, but it's not. I know our kids still struggle. Our two-spirit relatives, they still have a hard time because not everybody understands. But like my son says, we can't make everybody love us, but we can love ourselves. And that's one of the main things. So my journey through this whole thing, that, you know, it started with that, and it affects, you know, there's all kinds of lead off, like, how do you affect this? Whatever happens in here affects your relationship tomorrow. You know, I just love my son. I love him and I love his partner. And I've got other relatives who are two spirit, you know, and there's a lot of things that they have to go through. I've seen one young man at the Sundance, and the other men, you know, around the sweat one night, they're like, oh, we're going to make a man out of him yet, you know. And they probably see it with their eyes, but they don't understand what they heard it, but maybe they didn't even hear what they said. I don't know what it is, but that was not probably the thing to say, you know. And how I was thinking how that young man must have felt when they said that to him. You know, he still Sundances. He still goes into Sundance, but our kids need to be accepted in all traditional ways, in our ways and our way of life, and without judgment, without saying, oh, I'm going to make you and turn you into a man, you know, you're going to go pierce and you're going to be a man. No, we have to start keeping an open mind. And that's kind of one of my prayers, is that we just have that open mind, because I mean, 21st century, our kids are really still struggling. And that's my fear, is that, you know, my prayer is that one day that they can walk down the street and they can have their confidence to just say, yeah, I'm walking down, and give their partner a hug or a kiss, and nobody feels, nobody would bat an eye, because, you know what they say, love is love. Love is love. Just let people love how they want to love, instead of bringing all your, oh, well, they're evil, or they're molesters, or, I mean, people say all these crazy things. They make all these crazy judgments. And sometimes it even goes back to the Bible says you're going to hell. That's not true, you know. And I wish we just people would understand, because that's what really breaks my heart, is when people don't understand that, and they just want to have judgments against others, and it's not good. So if you're listening out there and you have a judgment, and you find out where that comes from, where does that hate in your heart come from, and really just pray, help yourself, keep an open mind, listen, because we're human beings, right? We're all, our kids, our grandkids, we don't know what's going to happen. When Creator sends us our babies, that's what he does. He sends us our babies, and our job is to protect them and to help them live in a good environment. And so that's my prayer for everyone today. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Those are some really powerful words. And I'm glad that you touched on the piece about, our young people being bullied. You know, one of the things that I like to talk about in the work that I do, and specifically talking about youth who identify, and it's powerful, but what I say is that our young people should not have to be killing themselves because of their identity. And so, you know, and we know that our two-spirit Native LGBTQ people play community roles. So the other part that I'm really glad that you touched on was the part about ceremony. So I kind of wanted to get Carrie and Linda's view on ceremony when it comes to our two-spirit people, our young people. If you could touch on that a little bit for us.
So I made a decision with my children. I became a mother, I think I was like 23 years old when I had Ryan. And I decided to raise him in our longhouse on the Oneida Reservation in Wisconsin. And I was very grateful and blessed that we have that in our community. And you know, there's specific gender roles within in the Longhouse, and I loved raising my child, my firstborn there. I had their name put through when they were a baby at our strawberry ceremony, and a lot of my family on my Menominee side was well, all my family raised Catholic, and so they were really surprised that I did not choose to get my children baptized. And it was so that, first of all, that religion was so ingrained into my family that we always thought that, you know, having a baby baptized was just the thing to do. It was normal. But the more I learned and the more I knew that, like, hey, our original ways still exist, I needed to go this route. My son Ryan will tell you that he did not like, there were certain things that he didn't like to do, and certain things that happened to him. Like he couldn't at the time play traditional or lacrosse because of the gender that he, I guess, I don't know how to put it, that his gender that we thought he was before, they're the wrong gender. I'm very careful with my words so I don't hurt him. I don't want to traumatize my son at all. That's why I keep referring to he's a son. To me, he was born a boy. We just got it wrong. That's how I want to say it. And I have to forgive myself. We have to forgive ourselves. But we haven't been to any of our ceremonies. You know, we just don't know. We don't know if he would be welcomed in there and to dance with the men. I just, that's all I can say about it. I don't know. I know that we avoid certain places so that he is not misgendered or dead named. And he taught me all about that. So I'm very careful, very mindful of if somebody misgenders or dead names him, I'm quick to just be like, no, like I really hypersensitive to it because I'm like in protective mama bear mode a lot of times. And the thing is that, you know, we have our ceremonies, and I don't know. I honestly, I can't even say how I would feel about going back. But you know what? If I ever did bring my son back there, I would proudly stand with him. And I would hope that other members of our Longhouse community would proudly stand with him. I would hope that his family and his community members would proudly welcome him home as the man he is and welcome him to that circle and to dance with the men. But right now, I don't know. I just honestly can't say whether it would happen or not. And because we've been living in Minnesota, we've been away from home since he's came out. And, you know, a lot of my teachings that I live by are those that I've learned from going to the Longhouse since I was a very young adult. And one of the main teachings is that we go to the Longhouse for the Creator. We go there to strengthen our relationship with the Creator. And I feel like that's what a lot of ceremonies are meant to do. And, you know, honestly, just living in Minnesota away from home, like I feel like I can strengthen my relationship with the Creator from anywhere. As long as I'm living true to the values and the original instructions that were passed down. And I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything. I don't know everything. But I take it seriously. The values that I do know, I take them seriously and I really try to live them out. Because what good is a person if they have all this knowledge, but they're not living the values? Mm-hmm. It's about demonstrating and living those values. What good is blood quantum if you're a full blood Indian and you're just living a rotten life and passing judgment? My husband, Lance, he's half Menominee and he's half white. And, you know, I never brag about him or anything because you know what? His actions speak louder than my words could ever speak. He's an amazing, loving husband. He's loved my son, Ryan. Ryan's not his biological son, but he's loved Ryan for who he is and never ever passed judgment and is supportive. He helps raise our nephews. He lives those values, and to me, he's a Native man for that. We try our hardest, but we also try our hardest to pay attention to those values, because I feel that's where a lot of us we get it wrong when we pass judgment. And just like Auntie Crystal said here, she said that we have to treat our children as sacred. We can't just say it. So that really hit me hard. And so yeah, but it takes a lot of courage for our young people to come out. And I can say all day that I would have courage by standing with my son, but he is way more courageous than I could ever be. Our youth who come out, who are going through this, are way more courageous than we could ever be. And for that, I'm proud and I'm honored to know any of them. And if any of them need my backing, I'm there for them. I also have a nephew who is gay. He lives on the Menominee Reservation. And he's been through it. And whenever he comes by me, I stand strong for him. And whenever he is in my presence, he knows he's loved and taken care of and supported. So that's all.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I admire your vulnerability and just the powerful words you just said. So let's go on to Auntie Linda. What are your thoughts?
A couple of I go to ceremony wherever I want to. And for some people, that's a problem. But I do believe that the creator, or Shka, is universal and big. And we shouldn't try to put any kind of rules around this. If you want to, that's good for you. But do not insist that those rules and your way of being is the right thing for every single human on the earth. The creator is so big that there are many ways to find a road to go to the creator. A couple of the people that I have ceremonied with are LGBTQ two-spirit. I don't understand why. I mean, I don't get it, because when we do sit there, you can hear the things in ceremony or in churches that are coming in that are man-made, and they give you a feeling right in your stomach, which is actually probably your spirit or the sacred place, that what is being spoken is either the truth, or you could tell when it's something that feels judgmental and hurtful. If it is excluding people, then it is not. Any interactions I've had spiritual in any places I've had to grow, and I too don't know everything. I only know based on my own experiences many years, is that anytime I was in the presence of that sacred energy, there is nothing but compassion, acceptance, and love. And I have a friend who I was talking to about my son and my fear. And he looked me in the face and he said, there are many things that are way, way, way worse for any human to be besides gay or a member of the LGBTQ. People make choices every day about using, about violence, about molesting, about raping, about hurting others, causing pain, about lying, that causes pain for all kinds of people. And then he recited a story, because he knew my fear was about people hurting my child. So I think in ceremony, if I know my spirit feels good there, then that's where I'll go. And I'd check it out first before I brought anybody else, because I have a sense of responsibility about where I'm bringing people. Most of our prayer is done in our home or with each other. And actually, since this whole thing started with the COVID and having to stay home, I received a message to pray at 9, and our family's been in prayer every night at 9 o'clock, as close to it. There's also teachings about medicines that we could use, that Creator gave us, that all plants, all members of the Root Nation are medicines, that those are gifts given to us, and not just certain people could use them, but they were, if you have been instructed on the use of those, then we actually, I know that Charlie and his partner have come over for 9 o'clock prayer. And then when we had medicine or a tea we drank to help take care of us, then that's what they did. You know, whatever I know to live a life and to help guide and navigate through life, and to help, you know, some of those things they're going to have to make up their own choices. And I said, it's not important to me that you do everything I do, or you find a way to pray or sing or whatever you're doing. It's just important to me that you build a relationship outside of yourself, that you are relying and knowing that there is something else, you know, that is supporting you. Because we don't all just have the answers. Everybody has part of the answer. And some people hoard that information and some people are mean about it. That's not the right teacher for you then. You know, if there's a way, our people have been hurt enough. We have enough trauma, enough ancestral trauma and pain that each actually flows in our blood. But we also have a resilience and a strength that is there that helps us to get up every day and keep on keeping on. So I think we need to emphasize more on that, and then the healing aspects of who we are as Indigenous people. And I welcome anybody when I go to pray. If there's limits on who could come, then I'm not going. So I guess I'm being choosy about where I'm sitting with and not because I think I'm better, but there's something there that is not welcoming to certain people. I have sat in circles where there are people I know that have caused harm and pain to others. And when talking with other advocates about that, we knew what that person did because we are victim centered. And she said there were so many people that have hurt people in that circle. I think we better find a different place to go. And I said, okay, yeah, we better go to a ceremony where just the good people are. Where's that? Because we all fall short of being good all the time, you know, and being kind and loving and generous. So we have to be more accepting in who somebody is. And if we don't accept people where they're at, you know, and of course, if there's safety issues or there's children and somebody has an issue with being a predator, then yeah, we have to have safety and consciousness. You know, we have to be level-headed and balanced about what we're doing. But where is the room to grow for anybody if we're limiting and judgmental? And do you honestly believe that Creator made just things for just you and the way you think? You know, it's so huge. And it's I've never had interaction where I was scolded, you know, by that energy or shunned or shamed. I carried enough shame for probably all of us on this call, just by being who I am. That's what society can do to you. But it's there you're able to shed and peel off to get to where the big beating heart is, that's filled with love for all of us, not just for certain people who fit into my line of who I think is acceptable, because that's all BS. But it's when you have the capacity to love other people much different than yourself, then you're in a place of spiritual energy, I believe. So thank you for letting me talk about it.
Thank you, Auntie Linda. So one of the things, and I'm glad you said that, I was in a space where the medicine person said to me that he had a vision, that that he knew that our two-spirit people played important roles in community, and especially with ceremony. And so one of the things he said to me was that in his community, when he talked about the two-spirit people coming to sweat or coming to ceremony, he warned his community and said to them, If you're not welcoming to them, if you have issues with them, then you're not welcome here either, because we all come here to pray. And that's the most important thing that we do in ceremony is pray, and that we shouldn't, put judgment on. That was really powerful to hear that from a medicine person. So we're going to shift now, and I just really want to thank the parents for your strong words and amazing words and such helpful words. And I just admire all of you. So we're going to shift to our young people now. So I'm going to start out with Ryan. So Ryan, I have some questions to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you come out? What were those experiences? Did you feel supported by family and community? What were some of your struggles and challenges coming out?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna start where I went to an all-native school, and there they didn't talk about LGBT like 0%, because the only way I knew about it was from my mom and a few friends at the school that were bi, and that's all I knew. And I wish there was more information there, but at that time there wasn't. And then when I was starting high school, I moved here to Minneapolis. And at my school, it was much more open, and they even have a GSA club. And my freshman year, I was in a class, and I was ahead, so I just was on my iPad doing work, didn't pay attention. But she played a transgender video of a female to male man, and my eyes were glued on it, and I was paying attention. And throughout the rest of the day, it just wouldn't, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so when I got home, I started looking it up, like, what is transgender? What does it mean? And I eventually found this video on YouTube about Jamie Dodger, who was transgender. And when I watched this story, I just knew right then and there I was transgender. So I had a word for how I felt. And it just felt like I was finally me, and I could be me. I originally first told my cousin, who is 2 years older than me, and we've lived together for like many years, and he's like a brother to me. We've been mistaken brothers, and we don't care. And he was all right with it. Yep. And then the next person I told was my mom, and she was, of course, open and awesome. And then the rest of my family finally found out. But on the support part, it was pretty supportive, except for some people in my dad's family. The people who I thought would actually be the most supportive were actually the most that weren't. Like, my grandpa and my grandma on my dad's side were questioning, saying, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And it just made me worse and worse, until eventually my grandpa said to my face that I am not. And it just killed me, because he was like my father. Because my dad was a man who was not with me most of my life. So he fit into that father role, and he didn't have a kid because my dad is not his kid. So I kind of fit into that role for him. So when that happened, it just really broke me, and it just hurt, because the only man that I looked up to said I wasn't a man. And I was really glad that Lance, my mom's husband, was open, so it was nice. And then I had all my cousins who are male that were nice, so it helped. And luckily to today, me and my grandpa made amends, where he said he was sorry, he just didn't understand, and that it's okay now. We don't talk much, but I'm glad it's an okay spot right now. And I hope one day that they can truly see who I am. But that's most of my family is pretty open and okay, and I'm really glad. And then some struggles and challenges were at the high school. I said it was pretty open, but they're not that welcoming to natives. So it was a real like complete world change when I went to an all native school to a school that doesn't even say that we exist. I've had students come up to me and say natives don't matter anymore. Well, they were lucky my anger was down, because if not, I would have got so mad. But I tried so hard at that school to show that we exist and that we are around, because all that I know, I was like the only two-spirit that went to the GSA, because I didn't see any other natives there. And because of that, I didn't really go anymore, because it just was like white people talking about that they're gay. And I was like, it didn't really fit completely. So I stopped going. And I went more to the native group there. And it was fun because they were pretty kind. They were nice that I was trans. And I back then I thought I was gay. Like I didn't know, and I didn't really try to figure that out part yet. But today I know that I'm pansexual. But back then I just was like, I think I'm gay. And I graduated there, and I'm going to MCAD, Minneapolis College of Art and Design. That is a completely welcome LGBT and two-spirit college. When I went there, and when I took one class there already, it was just perfect. I just knew it was like a place where I can finally be myself and happy, and not completely worry about all the people who are gonna harass me or tell me things. Because I've had people make fun of me more of my native culture than my LGBT culture, or at Roz. I had two students make fun of me by talking about Pocahontas as a joke in front of my face. So I tried hard to tell people that it's wrong and that it's just not appropriate. But no matter what I did there, it just wouldn't work, because whenever I tried, they would say, why are you even trying? It's not going to change. Who cares? But I still never gave up, and I still don't. But I'm not there anymore, and I really hope that that school changes someday. Because I've had a teacher, history teachers there aren't that good, because one time a history teacher told his students to draw how you see natives. Immediately, I knew that was not going to go well. And I saw people drawing redskins, all of that, and they put it on the wall. And I was just horrified that they did that at that school. And I still hope that that school improves and they stop doing that. But I know there's teachers there who are so privileged and white that they just don't want to even acknowledge us. And I've had teachers try to ignore me because they know I was native and I wouldn't let that stuff slide. But I just try to push through, and I'm not there anymore. But I hope it changes. And then the current struggles is the pandemic. Is my surgery for my top surgery got canceled 4 times. And it really, really broke me. I was at my lowest point when I heard it was canceled, because I've been waiting for that surgery for 4 years, 4 to 3. And it was coming in just a few weeks. And I was just like, finally. And then that was canceled. Then my prom was canceled. Then my graduation was canceled. And I was like, I just couldn't handle any more cancellations. Right now, it says it's coming in July 10th or 20th, I think. 20th, yeah. And I hope it's not canceled, because I really can't handle it. And because of that cancellation, I was at my lowest point. And I learned from that I've been through so much that what's the point of even giving up? So I'm trying to just take it day by day and hope that it goes through. And with people who ever are afraid to come out, I would say that you are living your life, not for others. Live it for your happiness, not for theirs. It's not their life, it's yours. And so just be yourself.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I was saving that last piece for
Oh,
after.
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm glad you said that because I think it's important that our young people hear you, hear your voices. Because we know a lot of our young people who live in rural communities, in our tribal communities, are really struggling. Um, and so just, my hope is that they will hear what you said, because and we as adults need to tell our young people that.
Yeah.
And for someone age who grew up on a reservation, and my experience was not a good experience, because I was bullied constantly. And so one of my things that I just want to say quickly is that I hope that it changes for our young people. Our young people shouldn't have to leave our reservations, leave their homes to go somewhere where they feel accepted. And we know that a lot of our young people come to the big city, to the urban communities with a lot of trauma. And there's no space in our tribal communities to help them heal. So thank you for your strong words. Charlie, do you need me to repeat the question, Charlie?
It was just about my coming out and experiences I've had so far.
Okay.
So I actually came out of the closet when I was in middle school. I was in 6th grade, and it's kind of funny. I told this random girl who I knew kind of would gossip about it and let everybody else know. And I told her, hey, I think I'm bisexual, blah, blah. And by the next day, the entire school knew. I had a couple people come up and ask me, is that true? Are you bi? And that was probably the extent of the ostracization I received from it, which is really surprising coming from a very small town in the middle of North Dakota, but I ended up I think I used bisexuality as kind of like a stepping stone into coming out as gay. But yeah, so 6th grade, I came out to my school. I think it was probably the next year that I came out to my mom, and it was kind of an accidental coming out. There was a post about it on the internet, and she ended up seeing it, and that was a whole thing. And one of the scariest things about coming out is you never know how someone's going to react. And I can say deep down, I knew my mom would be accepting. I know my mom has always been there for everybody, and she has no implicit bias. She's a wholehearted person. But even finding out that even when she found out that I wasn't straight, it still, scared me to the bone. It's a shaking feeling, like opening up that to other people for yourself to receive judgment. So, but in my opinion, I don't think we ever stop coming out to people. You're always meeting new people, and even to this day, if I go start a new job somewhere or I meet new people, I get asked if I'm gay. And at this point, sometimes it's just best to bring it out in conversation, just to kind of ease it over. And I think that's one of the better things about living in a place living in here in Minnesota, where it's more accepted, is I don't face nearly as much backlash or ostracizing or anything like that compared to what happened in Devil's Lake. But as I said again, I think I'm very privileged in the fact that I didn't get bullied or anything. So that was pretty much my experience with coming out. But as I said, you never stop coming out. It's a thing that you do your whole entire life. You're constantly coming out to everybody new you meet. And I think so far I've been grateful to have positive experiences with that.
Thank you so much, Charlie. So, Charlie, I want to ask you a question. If you could speak to any young people who may be struggling coming out, or maybe going through a lot of being bullied, what would you say to them?
So some of my personal thoughts on this question is, I think it's really great to be who you are and want to share that with the world, but it's also okay to hide that if your situation isn't safe. If your parents aren't super accepting of it, feel free to hide that until you're able to move out, get your own place, and then go about it at that point in time. And at the same time, not everybody is ready at the same time. There's not a right way to come out, and there's not a right time in life to come out. Everybody does it differently. Some people don't come out until they're adults, you know. Some people keep it inside until they're well into their 20s, 30s, 40s, and that's okay too, you know. Don't rush it, and wait till you're ready. And on top of that, as I just said, you know, you come out so many times in life. It never really ends, if you were to ask me, you know. It's a constant thing, and the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more you're able to assess the situation and, you know, decide if you should or should not come out to a certain individual. Sometimes it's nobody's business that you are gay, especially if it's like somebody you're gonna meet once or twice in your life. You know, they don't need to know. It's so I think it's all about determining the setting for yourself as far as coming out goes. But don't be afraid to come out if the situation's right. And it's scary, but as I said, you get used to it, and it gets easier and easier as you go along in life.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's just so powerful to hear you young people's voices. You know, one of the things that my hope is that with me being, make a joke and say I'm an older leader, just sort of like, you know, creating that space for you all. I believe that, you know, we have some very strong Two-Spirit Native LGBTQ leaders across the country who are doing amazing work. And how I see it is, you know, someone reached out to me the other day and had talked about leadership and showed me a picture of our ancestors like Weewa, Hastine Kla, all these individuals, and said, you know, they paved the way, which they did. They paved the way for me to be here. And so what I see is that I, as a leader, I need to pave a way for you all, because you're going to take our place. And so my hope is that for me, that I can give you strength, more courage, everything that I possibly can do for all of you. My hope is that I can do those things. So we're gonna sort of shift now. One of the things that I'm going to do now is I'm gonna take about, let's say about 10 more minutes, and I'm gonna open it up to all the panelists who would like to say anything more besides what you've already said. Again, I'm so very happy that you all are here. I admire all of you, your vulnerability. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of strength to share your knowledge. So I'm gonna open it up to you all. So whoever wants to start first.
I just want to say how much I agree with our young people who spoke today. And, you know, my son Ryan obviously wasn't a very safe and supported family. And so that was his journey in coming out. But I also want to stress, I want to just agree with what Charlie said, and that everybody has their own way in coming out. And I feel like Ryan would have came out earlier if, one, he had known about it, and two, like he felt comfortable in where we used to live to come out. So, you know, I just want to totally like agree with our young people, because a lot of time, I mean, I feel like our young people, I see our young people as our teachers, as our leaders. And my son has educated me so much about gender. I feel like, I know Crystal had mentioned this the other day when we met, you know, generationally, we are taught different things and we understand things differently generationally. And I tell my son that, you know, I'm going to be 42 years old this summer. And in my generation, you know, we understand gender and things like that very differently. And so Ryan's generation, I feel like they're far more ahead than my generation. And we're just here to learn from our young people. And to me, that's another value that we live by, is that, you know, our young people are are knowledgeable. I feel like the colonized Western way teaches us that our kids are to be owned and our kids don't know anything, and we are here to instill these teachings to them. But I don't believe that. We don't believe that. Our young people are leaders, our teachers, and we need to follow their lead too.
I totally agree. And I think that some of that is intimidating for older people or for people who are scared they're going to offend somebody by maybe not saying things correctly. And my son has had to educate me on a lot of different things. And he only lost his patience like once, that I remember. No, when he was trying to explain to me what I was reading and why I shouldn't believe it. And I said, well, I want you to see what other people are saying. And he just said, well, it wasn't even about LGBTQ, but it was about social justice. And so he has a whole different perspective in a way that I don't think I ever had the freedom or I didn't even understand, because I think we're so busy surviving, right? That because he was in a supportive, caring, loving environment, that he had more freedom, more time to look at things different instead of having to worry like other kids or other people might have. So I don't think there's any dumb questions, and I don't think there's any right. We want you to be respectful, but I think asking somebody if you don't understand, because to know, what does gender fluid mean? What does the gender identity mean? How do I say that? Why did we say her, she, her, hers? People don't know all that. We just know that I think tribally, or probably from an indigenous lens, is that everybody is a part of the circle and that everybody should be respected and cared for and loved. So if we were going to worry also or talk to people who were like in foster care or in homes where they weren't safe, maybe there's an adult that's using, or maybe there's a parent who is really biased and says that, then I think it is important to empower them to know and to trust their gut feeling about where they're at and who they're around. That's what I was going to say about that. I've learned a lot from my kids. I actually learned more about total acceptance and love. Unconditional love was a teaching my first child brought me. I learned what that meant. So thank you for giving us the chance to talk today.
Yes. Any of the other panelists want to share anything?
Yeah, I'd like to just say thank you for sharing your stories. And I'm just really proud of, all of us being here. It's so hard when thinking about speaking our truth. And that's what my kid said when they came here. He's like, just speak your truth, and I just can't imagine, when I think about my granddaughter, Iana, and, she committed suicide. And after so many, it's not ever just one thing, it's a whole combination. And that, I just want to remember her and all the other ones that were, you think about the history, how horrible people are to other people. And, you hear about that. I can't remember the young man that got, was beat over there in Wyoming, or was it Wyoming, or he got drugged by a pickup. And people are just so horrible. It's like, oh my God, how can they be so mean? Who are you that you're so ugly and hateful to other human beings? It's a scary world that we live in. And that's what my son says. He lives a lot of, he said he's on guard. He's on guard a lot. Not because he's fearful of coming out, but he's fearful of what other people might say or do to him. And, he's the strongest guy ever, and he'll stand up for himself. But you just don't know how other people are going to react in any kind of situation. So I'm glad that there are safe places like this, that we can have this conversation, and that we can all come together and just share. We all have every one of us, we all have a story to tell. And, I would, who is it, Linda, that said she carries the most shame? I'll beg to differ, because we carry shame, we're shamed out it seems like all of our lives. And, the things that we do, things people say to us, things we do, the decisions we make ourselves. But we have to always come back and just be like, shake it off. You do those things, you shake it off, you breathe, you let it go, because it does us no good. I think we all heard that from each and every one of us. We all said that today. And when I think about Ayana, my granddaughter, and the struggles she went through, and I think about my son, and he had to go all the way to Hawaii. That's where he went to come out. Just to be himself, he moved to Hawaii. And he lived there about 8 years. And then he found his partner there, and he came home. And I always feel good when I'm with my son and his partner. I always feel special. And it may sound weird, but I always feel like, for real, I feel like I'm in the presence of God when I'm with my son and his partner. When I'm with anybody who's when I'm with anybody who's strong, can stand up, who is not afraid to be who they are. I feel good. I feel your power, you two, you young people. I feel your power. I feel your strength. I feel proud to just be on the same screen. When I look at the screen, this is my first talk that I've been in on this Zoom thing. And this coronavirus, I was just looking at my eyebrows. I'm like, oh my God, Corona. I haven't had my eyebrows done or my lip waxed. I'm like, oh my God, look at me. My hair, I haven't did anything to my hair, but it's okay. We are who we are. So, but I just want to say that, I do feel very powerful, and I'm so glad that my heart, my spirit feels good. And I hope that we educated. I hope that some of you out there listening, that you would share this with others, grandmas, grandpas, those who don't understand, who want to love you, who want to love everybody for who they are, but because of their past, maybe they grew up in a boarding school, Catholic boarding schools, that's the worst. Because it was just one single thought. And that's kind of one thing my son, he always is like, he's afraid that, people say, oh, you're going to hell and stuff like that. So he always has to fight against that. And I just can't imagine like living your life with all those fears of not being able to be who you are. So I just want to thank Lenny, and thank everyone for inviting me to be a part of this conversation, because you guys are also awesome. And I think we are in the presence of the Creator. So thank you, Lenny, everybody.
Thank you so much, Crystal.
I just want to say thank you to Ryan and Crystal for being able to include trans people and non-binary people in this conversation, because even today, they get forgotten so many times in the conversation of LGBT, even though the letter is right there, T, they get lost in the swarms of people talking about gay and lesbian issues. And so it's really awesome that we can include those people in this conversation with us. So just thank you to you both for, being who you are, knowing who you do, and just doing it without, I'm losing my words here, but just thanks for being yourselves. Absolutely.
Thank you,
Charlie.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. Was what Charlie said. Yeah, my experience with like trans and LGBT. Yeah, we kind of, I guess we get ignored saying like, why are we in there? Because I another worry that I know gay people don't have, but trans people have, that are if they're gay or if they're bi or pan or any other part of that, that we worry that gay people won't accept us and think that they're bi then or something, or if they're straight, and it's like then it's not validating our gender. Because I've had my friend who um is bi, and then their friend was gay, and I hung out with them, and she told me that her friend doesn't date trans people because he just doesn't want to. And I was like, that's really awful that even inside LGBT that trans people don't get acceptance. So that's why I really try to hope to find people that find that for trans people as well, because I guess it's like the lowest of the low for all of it. But I hope that all trans people that are watching can find a place that they don't have to deal with that.
Thank you so much, Ryan. So I want to give you all a comment that just came through, and it's very powerful for all of you. But the comment said is that it would be great if this forum can continue on a weekly or monthly basis. This has been incredible. So take a deep breath. I mean, that's a compliment to all of you. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to open it up for any questions from the audience that they want to ask the panelists. We have about 10 minutes left before we end. So I kind of want to open that up to any questions out in people who are attending this conversation. You know, we don't get to have these kind of conversations like we should. And I do agree. I mean, we should have different conversations with families and young people who identify, because we know that there's more that happens out there, especially like, again, like I'm saying, is like rural communities, tribal communities. We know that there is so much that our young people go through, even our people who are adults who identify as Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ, are experience a lot of violence. One of the things that I want to share with all of you is that I attended a webinar with the National, I believe it was the National Human Trafficking. And one of the things that I was so blown away with was that, and I wish I can quote, I'm hoping that I do get a copy of that webinar. But one of the things that I learned in that webinar is that 51% of our gay males are being trafficked. We don't talk about that. And so we have so much that we need to talk about. We know that we also have missing and murdered Two-Spirit people, Native LGBTQ people, and I'm so happy to be a part of Sovereign Bodies, is because that's one of the things that I've been talking about 3-4 years. I know we have missing and murdered Two-Spirit people, and so it was a blessing that I was able to meet Anita in October when I was part of a cohort. So I believe that to do work together. So so let me see, let me look here.
Get your music film.
So I would like to, there was a request. I want to ask my Ina Ethleen. The audience would love to hear your thoughts about the conversation that we have been having. She may not be responding. All right, so so here's a question I think that I can answer. So I am a therapist and work with youth. What advice can you give to a therapist that is learning something new each day? from clients. Let me ask any panelists, do you have an opinion, or would you like to respond to that?
I would say in that situation, it's obviously you're going to want to try to remember what you can and learn as much as you can, and don't be afraid to do your own research on the subject. If you're not understanding something, and maybe even after the session has ended and you still have questions about it, don't be afraid to, Google deep dive and, just learn for yourself on the topics, as well as taking information you gain from others to kind of build what you know from the ground up.
Thank you. A quick question to you, Ryan. Can you speak to the language you prefer of Native LGBTQ as compared to Two-Spirit, particularly given the colonization of LGBTQ language as we know it?
Wait, what is that question?
So it says, can you speak to the language you prefer of Native LGBTQ as compared to Two-Spirit, particularly given the colonization of LGBTQ language as we know it?
Well, at my school, they did teach us Oneida language. I can speak some of it. I have a native name, but ever since I moved to Minneapolis, I kind of lost my way about that, and I forgot some things. And I think it's really sad that I had this feeling that I think it's sad that I think Two-Spirit sometimes, if they want to move and be more accepting with their LGBTQ plus side, they kind of lose some of their native side. And I had to, because I cut my hair, and it kind of hurt because I've had my long hair forever. So did all my cousins and everyone in my family. But it also felt right because it made me feel more who I was. But it just had to happen at that time. But now I'm growing my hair, but then it's also cut. So it also kind of feels like both. And I wish people of LGBT didn't have to choose, like, to learn more LGBT and lose some native culture, or the other way around too. But I hope that there's a way that we can have both.
Thank you, Ryan. So before we end, again, I want to go back to my Ina Ethelene and ask her, what are her thoughts?
Good afternoon again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So glad to see you all, and just a very, very interesting, but also very painful discussion that many of us have engaged in harmful, hurtful language, actions against our relatives. And, it's due to the colonization. It's due to, I know that we're all responsible for our own actions, but the influences that have impacted us, that have devastated us throughout history is just amazing. So I'll give you an example. So at one time, we all called each other by kinship terms, all of us. And whenever we met another tribe, another people, then we greeted them as relatives. And one of the things that I'd like to share is that, that relatives means that we extend our spirit to one another, our heart to one another, and we share a, how would you say it, a responsibility, to treat each other as good relatives, so I just like to offer that and extend my spirit to my relatives that are on this panel discussion. And what I'd really like to encourage to all of us that are listening is to treat each other as good relatives, that we're all, pitiful in this world. We're all struggling, and we all have issues and problems and strengths and skills. We all have, something to offer, but we're also all struggling, especially during this time. So I just like to offer that. Pilamaya.
Thank you. Ina, I'd like to make another request from you. Would you possibly do a closing for us?
So I just like to ask you to sit back, relax, close your eyes. I'd like to ask you to take a deep breath through your nose, out your mouth. And just think of the most beautiful place where you feel relaxed. Me and my husband went to Bear Butte yesterday, and that was the most beautiful experience. And that's what I'm picturing right now. But it might be in your home, it might be with a person, it might be with somebody that you really, really love and feel comfortable with, or it might be, out on the prairie, in the mountains, by the river, by a lake. It's really up to you where you feel very peaceful and calm. And just picture that. Tunkashila wopila tanka nkeni chapina le mitakuya pilana daku iwogla kapi ki wopila tanka hechaya na tunkashila mitakuya pilana woanglake wichozani na woash ake okiwi chapia tukashila unshunkilapia mitakuya oyasi. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Ina. So I apologize to all of our people out there if we weren't able to get to all of your questions. What I would like to do now is that I want to ask the panelists to stay on as we sign off. I want to thank all of you who attended. And it's really important that we continue to have this dialogue wherever we may be, wherever we're at. We need to continue to have conversation about our Two-Spirit Native LGBTQ relatives. And again, how can we be good relatives to them? So I want to thank you all for attending. Take care, be safe, and be well. Thank you.